what do you think about infidelity? Um, you know, what's the cause of infidelity? Why do men and women cheat?
It's different for everybody, but I mean, even earlier I was saying with adventurousness, like if monogamy is something you're doing, uh, I've seen in my own practice, I've seen the entire range of couples who are open about having sexual relationships with other people and fine with it. Couples who want to be fine with it, but find out they're not. Couples who aren't just couples with multiple people, multiple romantic relationships. I've had couples where affairs are tolerated and not talked about. They're not enjoyed, but they are not the type of betrayal that will destroy the relationship. Sort of a understanding and keep it out of my face. And then
So,
also we won't talk about it.
so an affair that happened without getting permission first,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as you don't talk about it,
Right.
it's not going to do a damage to the relationship.
Right. But
Or
we can't even talk about it like that, right? So
Okay.
nobody's going to admit that the affair is happening.
Right.
There can't be any evidence of it. It's sort of a just look the other way type of a situation. But the partner who is not having the affair, right? They typically know. They certainly know that their partner is capable of that. They just kind of know, but they don't want it in their face. It would become a problem if it was in their face. Um, as long as certain needs are met and everything else is okay at home, it's just one of those things where don't ask, don't tell.
Well, that's an interesting point because I had a bunch of arguments with people. I tend to hang out with, especially in the tech sector, people who really value like honesty and radical honesty. And I keep arguing with people about this because to me, it's not that simple. Like that's an example right there. That honesty can be really destructive. Like honesty is also a really complicated thing to get to the bottom of because what is really honest?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like how do I look in this dress? Like there's a million ways to answer that.
Yeah.
A lot of
it can be a cesspool in my mind if I'm in a bad place or my partner and I haven't, like if Ty and I haven't been connected lately, my honesty of what I actually think about him would be horrifically damaging and completely unfounded also. And it can change on a dime.
But that's also not actual honesty to the big picture of how you feel about him. I have interacted with a few folks who talk about their previous sexual partners, for example, the numbers of sexual partners they've had, and they feel like that kind of honesty is actually empowering, enriching to the relationship because all the sexual experiences you've had in the past make you a better sexual partner, better partner in the present. And to me, from the culture I've come from, that's like anti-romantic.
Yep.
You kind of throw the past kind of away.
Right.
You don't really talk about it. It's kind of there in this amorphous shape, but it's almost as if you've met together for the first time and this is a beautiful new thing, like you're creatures that have woken up from a long slumber.
Right. You're starting anew.
Right. So
and you want some mystery there.
Right. I think the mystery, and like you have to figure that out about each other. So I'm not exactly sure that honesty is always
different for everyone. And then also, is honesty harmful or helpful at certain points too?
Yeah.
So you're talking about sort of like disclosing prior sexual history.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go to, so if you've had an affair, do you keep that under your hat?
Oh yeah, that's a really tough question.
Or are you obligated to disclose it?
It is
a very tough question. Very tough.
Well, what do you think is the
I have
right
my
answer?
own personal beliefs. I also I have my therapeutic beliefs. I think, frankly, and this is just me as a human being, not Shannon the psychologist. Yeah. I believe that if you have fucked up, and I'm coming from a framework right now of monogamy. If you are committed to somebody you love and you have fucked up, you don't get to shed your guilt onto them. You need to carry that burden. It's not necessarily, I think it's simplistic and unsophisticated to be like, but then you're being dishonest. Yeah. I think it's actually selfish to unload it on somebody else and give them the trauma of imagining. What we do know about infidelity is that it can create an actual post-traumatic stress-like experience for the betrayed partner, where they are having intrusive thoughts about it. Those are unwanted thoughts, and it's uncontrolled. It comes in at multiple times a day. They'll have depressed mood. They'll have nightmares about it. Their entire sense of security, safety, self-esteem gets shattered because of your actions. I think it's kind of moralistic and naive to think, well, they deserve to know the truth. If you actually know the harm that sort of betrayal does, especially if you truly mean to stop it, right? So if it was a one and done, or if it happened and you've stopped it and you do not intend to do it again, frankly, I think you live with that burden. You live with that discomfort.
Thank you for saying that, because I totally agree, but it's like logically it's doesn't quite make sense to give that advice, but psychologically makes complete sense, because you really are destroying another person's mind, their faith in love, in relationships, their trust, everything. And then you're imprisoning them to be stuck with you for months or years if you're trying to work through that torture. So you should be carrying that burden and working through it, I think. Why do you say that that's your personal opinion versus your therapeutic? Like what?
Well, I think everybody has different values.
Right.
So I think that's a value-based decision, because to me, the hierarchy is kindness and do no further harm.
Yeah.
Over, in that case, over truth. Yeah. Right. Whereas other people, my husband, for instance, he is like truth above all else. Yeah. You don't get to decide what I know, or, you don't get to decide whether or not I can handle that knowledge. So he would even see my determination of, that I should carry the burden sort of arrogant, like, well, why don't you let your partner decide whether or not they, why do you get to choose? I don't know. I think there's value to both arguments. I absolutely see his point.
It's fascinating.
I absolutely see his point. And I think is like a very humble sort of option. Like, you don't get to choose what's better. You just need to give them the information and they can choose. But I think, I don't know, I think it's kinder to hold. I think it's going to cause your conscience more discomfort to hold it. And I think there's sort of a cleansing we do when we share that information. I think in real life, most people disclose it because they can't stand the secret anymore themselves. That to me is a selfish act.
I have unemployment applications and so on, and just with friends would ask people, what do you care more about, truth or loyalty? Just to get to see how they think about those different questions. And I was surprised how much variance there is on that. And
also conceptually, I don't think we actually know where we stand until we're faced with a situation like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially when they're younger, say, especially if they're kind of intellectual, they'll say truth above all else. Yeah. It's like, all right.
You're exactly right.
All right.
It's a platitude.
Until you get to hear a truth that truly breaks you, or truly hurts you, or causes suffering to you. And then you realize, or a truth you give to somebody else will cause them suffering.
Right.
And then you get to see that suffering destroy their life and maybe your relationship and so on. And then you're like, oh.
Or like, should I sit my dad down right now and be like, Dad, your dementia, like you have dementia again today. I'm going to tell you, Dad, you're not making sense. No, it's not going to be discussed. We're going to make him comfortable. And I mean, I think truth can be a little bit of a platitude sometimes.
Some of those complexities are all the things involved in the challenges of what makes a relationship work, right?